Guys, welcome to the channel, and a hot war with China is closer by the day. Check this out from what happened with Philippine sailors.
All spoken out in support of the Philippines. They've been critical of China after a confrontation between Filipino forces and the Chinese Coast Guard. New details have emerged about the incident which happened on the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea Monday. CNN's Ivan Watson live in Hong Kong with more details on this. So what appears to be a collision between a Chinese vessel and the Filipinos, there are now more details about what actually happened on that island.
Yeah, I mean, initially we were getting accusations from the Philippine government and armed forces accusing the Chinese Coast Guard of acts of piracy and of injuring a number of Filipino personnel. Well, then we've seen some footage, heavily edited, released by the Philippine Armed Forces, which really do show what is clearly an escalation in months of confrontations, where you have small Chinese boats swarming a small Philippine boat, and at times we see helmeted, uniformed Chinese personnel wielding axes, striking the Philippine vessel, taking at least one bag off the Philippine vessel. The Philippine Armed Forces.
Look at this guy with an axe. This is something that you see quite a bit. They're, instead of going straight with firearms, they're just attacking with melee weapons, right? Axes and spears and that sort of thing, so as to not cross that line between an active act of war. I mean, the Philippines is no slouch when it comes to fighting. You don't want to start a fight with the Philippines. These guys are not exactly pushovers. It is a country of people that are no strangers to violence. So they want to push them up to a point, not too far, but you see the act of violence clearly from the Chinese side.
Forces say one of their sailors actually lost a finger in what took place here. The Chinese government is denying that it engaged in anything illegal here. Take a listen to a spokesperson for the foreign ministry.
China urges the Philippines to immediately stop its infringing and provocative actions. China will continue to resolutely safeguard its sovereignty and rights in accordance with the law.
This is the typical thing from bullies, right? Bullies will say, we are just defending ourselves. You're the one that's attacking us. We're just defending ourselves. You're threatening our sovereignty. You're threatening our right to exist. Bullies do that sort of bullshit. They are the ones attacking. They are the ones infringing on the other's rights.
So China has actually accused the Philippines of trying to smuggle weapons and construction materials to this little outpost it has on a rusting, grounded ship in this contested shoal. The area that is under dispute, it has been disputed between China and the Philippines really for years. But the confrontations of...
This goes back to that 7-dash line, an arbitrary decision by the Chinese government to, this is all ours. It just belongs to us. And they've been building up for years. They're even building up artificial islands and landing pads and air bases all over the Chinese Sea, expanding their territory. They want to make sure they control all of this, but look at what's being disputed here, right? These guys are getting closer and closer to other countries, and the clash is pretty much inevitable.
Escalated over the course of the past couple of months, John. I was on board a Philippine Coast Guard ship, and I saw how Chinese Coast Guard ships and maritime militia swarmed the smaller number of Philippine vessels, maneuvered very dangerously, and just how tense it truly is. But what we're seeing in this footage is clearly an escalation. And the Philippine president has warned that if this leads to the death of a Filipino, it would be essentially an act of war. Take a listen.
If a Filipino citizen is killed by a willful act, that is, I think, very, very close to what we define as an act of war.
Now, the concern here, of course, not only is there the risk of a flashpoint and a new conflict in the South China Sea, but also Manila's treaty ally is the U.S. And the U.S. repeats that its commitment to this mutual defense treaty is ironclad. So, you know, map out the scenario if something were to escalate even further. And
he's talking about the mutual agreement treaty of defending one another. U.S. reciprocates its obligation and reiterates its obligation to defend the Philippines after new clash with China at sea. A mutual defense treaty obligates Washington, and this is from the 1950s, I believe. There is 1951 mutual defense treaty. This is United States and Philippines have been very close for a long time. It's been one of, honestly, this is not Israel. Philippines are a real ally of the United States. They're very pro United States. They've been great allies of the United States for many years. And this would be a point where you cannot just turn a blind eye and say, well, screw it. So what you see here is a series of things. You see China being very bullish with Taiwan, China expanding in the Chinese Sea. Just because it's called a Chinese Sea does not mean that everything close to it belongs to you, right? But that's China. You know how this goes. You see Russia sending their flagship frigates to Cuba, just a stone throw away from the United States in a very threatening manner. There's no reason other than just bullying the United States into getting into a more, let's call it a more defensive position. So you see China, you see Russia, you see Putin now going over with North Korea. You clearly have a certain axis that is aligning against the West. And if the West does not wake up and start aligning themselves, you will be caught by surprise. Let's put it that way. I've talked before about World War III. Has it started already? Did it start here or there? Man, you call it whatever you want. I see a very complicated scenario ahead. It's just putting all of these pieces of a puzzle together. We are looking at an axis of evil, and I'm not using that lightly no, that is what I see with these communist Soviet regimes. Russia is an authoritarian regime. China is an authoritarian regime. North Korea is an authoritarian regime. Cuba, authoritarian regime. Maduro, Venezuela, another authoritarian regime. These are places by pure coincidence. They're all fucking authoritarian regimes, the opposite of what the West was supposed to stand for, at least up until not that long ago. You may not be looking to start conflict. I'm not one of those guys. Warmongers, no. But it is also true that war is a fact of life. Unfortunately so. Defending yourself, may that be whatever thing you use to defend yourself. When it comes, I'm not a warmonger, yet I will defend myself in my own home. I'm not a violent person, but I will defend my family and myself if I have no other option. If you expand this to a national level, you see these guys in the global theater behaving that way. These are the criminals. These are the thugs. These are the ones that will try to impose themselves on the rest of us, little by little, expanding here and there, attacking and taunting here and there. And if they see weakness, if they don't see you united and strong, you will only encourage more of this behavior. Guys, as always, prepare as much as you can, for as long as you can, giving everything going on. For that, you have my books, you have the channel with a ton of information and comments, questions, all of that always very much welcome in the comments there below. See you next time.